Hey everybody, I'm JD and I'm the CEO of Pulse. Today I've got my good friend Allan Branch with me. We go way back. Allan, how did we meet originally? Do you even remember?
Oh my God, I don't even remember that.
We
That's
were
crazy.
like,
Is this a video podcast?
yeah, it is.
So no picking my nose. Okay.
Well, you can pick your nose if you want. It's really up to you. I know we met at some of the Converge conferences, maybe.
That might have been it.
With
Yeah.
Gene Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at some fancy new downtown egg hatchery startup incubator space with stadium seating.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just happy to be there and didn't want to miss a thing. And you were sitting outside and we're not interested in listening to any of the speakers. Because you've been doing these for much longer than I had at that point.
Yeah,
you're already well into this, huh?
I don't go to conferences for the speakers.
Yeah, you're there to buy ice cream at the last minute.
That's right. We did buy ice cream there. My goodness, that feels like a decade ago. It was a decade ago.
I had just bought Pulse, so that would make this around 2012. And I was talking to you about marketing for Pulse. And I remember one of the things you said, because you knew about Pulse. You had known about Pulse. You had given me some advice that one of the best things Pulse had done was to get in the Basecamp marketplace as an integration. And you said, you need to do more of that. Yeah, that's because...
Free traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Free traffic from a very popular platform. And at the time, Basecamp had an integrations page with like maybe 30 integrations. And that was a big part of Pulse getting off the ground originally.
And people thought integrations also was like trust by proximity.
Right.
They thought it was like some big, oh, you've integrated with this company. Oh, wow. Now it's like, well, whatever.
You mean you don't integrate with 75 different things?
Right. You're right.
So that was the first advice you gave me, and I liked it because it was so common sense, and you knew software and you knew how to grow a product, but it was also, you weren't just thinking about it as a software product. You were thinking about it as a business and how to make money with it and how to so anyway, I thought about that as I was getting ready for our call because I thought your perspective would be really good today. And I kind of want to talk with you in front of all the Pulse people and anybody else that gets their hands on this video because of the way you see the world. So let me do a quick introduction to you. So at the time when we met, you were running a business called Less This, Less That, Less These, Less Those. And everything was named Less something. You had a Less Conference or Less Conf, which was, I guess, kind of a software and web designer conference, developer conference.
Yeah, mostly, but there wasn't any sort of tutorials on how to build things. It was more psychology of entrepreneurship or psychology of leadership and those sort of things. Stories of weird stuff.
You had a company, the software startup. I call it a startup. It was a business software company that made accounting software. That sucked less than other accounting software called Less Accounting. That's the business you were running when we met. You were running Less Accounting, and we even did some. Did we do some usability testing for you?
I think you did a report, but you definitely did the logo. We hired you guys to do the logo.
Yeah, we
redesigned the logo.
We made a smiley face logo that was real goofy and non sequitur, right?
Yeah. I wanted the app feel more human, and I like smiles and so.
And for anybody listening along, we're like 5% of the way through Allan's, career interests. Less Everything was your agency.
We did agency work too.
Dev agency. Yeah. You're still, so are you running any of those actively right now?
No, I am building a software product with a developer who was our very first developer, who's been employed with us for 12 years. We're about to dissolve that company, but it's called Group Collect. So we partnered with a former client who is just the best client we've ever had. And he's in group travel. So if you have a high school band that wants to travel to Hawaii to play in a parade, they book the travel, they collect the payments, they do all the waivers, they do all the stuff. And we're building a product that handles that sort of thing.
Starting maybe in 2022.
Well, there's people traveling right now. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Groups together?
Groups, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's different protocols, but not as much as we'd like, but certainly it's ramping back up. So
right. Well, I started my business in the bust around 2009. Mm-hmm. And I decided that if I could get a business going in that kind of climate, that kind of business climate, that by the time everything was humming along, I'd know what I was doing. And I could see Group Collect being the same way. Like if you can get a group travel business going in 2020, 2021, like you can do anything. The world is your oyster.
Yeah, totally.
So you're making movies and TV shows and stuff as well. You a few years ago, has it been a few years? You made Our Little Warehome on YouTube?
Yeah, we the story behind that was like 4.5, 5 years ago. My wife and I decided to move our family to our little downtown in Panama City, Florida. And we bought an old building in our downtown, a brick wall building built in the 30s, and decided to turn it into our home. And we had a video production company too. One of the things that we had less accounting. We would do videos. I hired a local friend here that did videos, and we would do our own videos, explainer videos and tech support videos and marketing videos. And people kept saying like, hey, do a video for us. And so that kind of grew into its own company, doing explainer videos and conference videos and that sort of stuff. But we had these resources of video production. I knew the story of a family moving into a downtown, building a home out of an old building was interesting. And I emailed enough people and someone said yes, and they greenlit it and sent us a big check and sponsors and all.
So one of the things I hope you don't mind me asking, and if you just slap me on the wrist, we can edit it out. But the thing about that struck me, and another reason I want to talk to you today, so everybody listen up, is that you were able to figure out how to basically move into that house like super cheap by making a video about moving into the house and letting Lowe's pay for everything. Is that about right?
Yeah, not quite, but close. So, in the meantime of, software developers and designers can build their time out really well. And we were doing a lot of consulting projects at the time. And so really it was I wasn't focusing on software. I was doing this project. And so really, yeah, we made money, but could I just build my hours and done better? Probably so. Okay. Really what it was is I thought it was an interesting project. It was a challenge. It was something new. I wanted my family to be a part of it. I thought of it as just an odd experience to have in your life. And that sort of thing.
It's an incredible series on YouTube. And I didn't know that Lowe's made TV shows on YouTube, but they do, and they're really good. So I'll make sure that you all got all you people out there get links to that. In fact, Lowe's was a pretty good partner because didn't you do a second project with them?
We did. I did a second project for Lowe's with some friends here in town. They were just looking for more content. One of the director of the YouTube channel for Lowe's told me early on, he said, really look at YouTube. And this is 5 years ago. He said, look at YouTube like little mini TV networks, and companies are TV networks, and they're not production houses.
Right.
They need to work with people who are production houses. And there wasn't much episodic content, episodic being one video ties into the next video, ties into the next video, until here recently. And so his name's Jonathan. He's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
But, interesting experience. Very challenging, very hard to do. Yeah.
Well, so I was watching some of those episodes this morning, getting ready to talk, and one of the things that struck me is again the way you see the world, and I can't wait to talk to you about cash flow because that you framed up a story with these two characters in the other video series where they're getting ready to take down a wall. And dude grabs the sledgehammer and he's about to do what they do in every home improvement show and just knock a big hole in it because it makes for a great shot. Mm-hmm. And then everybody throws their hands up and says, whoa, 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 dude, that's not how you do that in the real world.
Sure.
Let's talk about like making sure there's not any plumbing in there. Mm-hmm. Let's get the wires out of the way. Let's make sure this isn't load bearing. And then they sort of, and I thought that was, a great way of sort of reframing reality, but still sort of following an interesting format, and bringing some common sense into it. You also do a ton of real estate. So you bought a historic home and you're running a wedding and events venue. Mm-hmm. You've got a brew pub with a friend who brews called History Class, and you're buying up all sorts of property in downtown Panama City where you live.
Right.
And I know that we're going to talk about some of the tax stuff around, your strategy there with the real estate. But let's jump into the conversation we want to have today about business, because I think at this point, everybody who's hung with us this long realizes, okay, Allan is into like a million things. Right. I'm into like a million things. We're both combined into like 2 million things from a business perspective. Yeah. Yeah. And we've got people out there who are running businesses that are using Pulse, who are into a million things. And we got people out there who are just like, no, I need to do one thing and concentrate on making that the best. But where we're at in the world, because we're recording this on January 12th, is we've got PPP 2 coming out. And this is the topic, right? This is the topic we want to talk about. I want to talk about with you specifically, because when you think about PP2, you think about a lot of things. There's the politics, right? There's the things that some people were saying about the first round of PPP, which was free money, and then there's the other things you hear people say like, but some people who really needed it couldn't get it, whether it was for institutional reasons or just access, or knowledge or education.
Sure.
There were people who got it who really needed it, who it saved their businesses. There are people who got it who really needed it and it couldn't save their business. There's people who got it and didn't need it, and they did smart things with it. And there's people that did dumb things with it. And then all of a sudden around Christmas time, we found out that, it was actually free money, like no taxes, nothing. It was just basically a grant. And now they're doing another round. So what I'd like to kind of do together is and really hear from you. What are the things people can do with the second round of PPP money if they're lucky enough to get it? And so dive right in, please. Go ahead.
Well, I don't really have a monologue for this. However, I certainly look at my background, and I'm definitely not the right person to give tax strategy advice. And you've identified many different situations. This money may be saving their business and they can't really play with it. Other people, they may be like, wow, this is free money. What do I do with it? And that's really who we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who his business is stable, who's received money, free money from the government, and it's nice to have. And really, if you really look at the reason why the government put money out,
and we're talking about the U.S. government at this point.
U.S. right? Yeah. They didn't give you the money to save it. They want you to put it back into the economy, because if you spend the money, it stays in the economy and someone else gets paid. And so they don't want you to put it into a savings account.
Right.
That's not the purpose of it. They want you to spend it. And so my background doesn't lend me the right tax strategy or like, what stock to buy. That's not really my forte. I'm good at, having tools, creating tools that make money in a symbiotic way. I'm good at lead generation. I kind of know what can be achieved. I don't swing and miss a lot of times. I might swing and only get a double out of it, not a home run. I don't swing and miss much. And so I tend to not, what I feel like I don't reach for the stars. It may seem like, selling a 6-figure video project to a publicly traded corporation is a big swing, but I kind of know the little steps, the testing steps to get you to that point.
Right.
So if I were, and this, I hate giving generic advice to hundreds or thousands of people who are all in different situations, and half of them go, that doesn't make sense. You don't know me. But certainly I look at money. People often say, you have a finite amount of time in your life or in your day. And you do. I think you have a finite amount of stress and a finite amount of brain cycles. That's really more important to me. More time I can come up with. I can sleep less. I can work on weekends. I can get up earlier, those sort of things. I can add a little bit of time to my life, at least my work day. But so I would say with anybody, they have to realize as a business owner or project coordinator, or whatever their task is, what brings them the most stress. And so for me, as my businesses, I get really nervous if I don't have a cash pad. So I would definitely recommend having a cash pad. So while you shouldn't save all the money, definitely have enough where trying to predict the next few months, having a cash pad lowers my stress level. I also know that I can't do everything. Every one of my ideas I can't do. So I automatically trim them back. Was it Walt Disney? His brother said that Walt would come up with an idea. They'd put the idea in a drawer on a piece of paper. And then once a year, Walt would get to pull it and dig around for an idea and pull one out and do it. Okay. So the vast majority of your ideas, throw them out. You need someone too, who you can come to an idea and just say, I got an idea. A lot of times you just want to get it out of your body. Like you just want to verbalize it because it makes you feel good and have a big laugh and then go back to work. Mm-hmm. So even just having someone, which is what I love about having business partners, is you can come to them and say, I got this crazy idea. I just want to tell it to you and then see how they react. Yeah. So that's also a good exercise to have. And so what someone should do with a PPP money, in my personal opinion, if you do not need it for your cash flow to pay your payroll, is you should look for ways to lily pad your business to the next level of success, whatever that may mean, right? Does that mean you hire someone and you build something as an open source project? Does that mean you spend it meeting people who can take your business to the next level? Does that mean you put it into ad dollars? So the definition of what your success is of your company is up to you. It might be, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm just not going to work for 3 months. I'm going to send everybody on a 2-month vacation. Or it might mean growing revenue or growing staff or doing more marketing, those sort of things. But success is defined by the person. Yeah. So that money should get you closer to success.
Well, I think they are making some requirements on how you spend the money too that we should probably acknowledge, which is, I think, 60% has to go towards payroll expenses.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, a lot of people will stop there and say, oh, well, if I can't spend 60% of it, should I take the money? And I think that answer is different for everybody.
I'd take the money.
Yeah.
Find a way to spend it.
Right. On payroll.
Can you hire more people with the money?
Sure.
Can you prepay for people's wages later?
You cannot. I checked into that.
I personally, if you had to spend on labor, I would be looking at what can you be building with your team, with your resources for marketing, for lead generation. What's a fun project? And maybe that's the angle, right? Is building things with your tools, your staff that help you in the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
If you had ideas for marketing, like I don't know what businesses that people have. So let's say you have a busy season around the fall. I would be building all your marketing materials and initiatives for the fall. This money doesn't have to directly affect you this spring and summer. You could be looking at all the different, if I had video marketing people on my staff, I'd be paying them to shoot videos for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the holidays between.
There you go. Yeah.
Those sort of things.
So I heard a story, and I don't want to name any names, keep everybody's confidentiality, but there's an agency that's kind of like mine, Simple Focus, which is a digital agency. Mm-hmm. They very successful, very good reputation. They make between $1.5–2.5 million in profit a year, and they had a rough early 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to go through some layoffs, and they got some payroll off the books. And then they got the PPP money, and then had a good year after that.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason. I think partly because they trimmed some overhead. Unfortunately, that meant letting some people go. But they got their business in order and had a very profitable year, and they had $500,000 in PPP money as well. And later in the year, after they had to go through some layoffs, they bonused everybody about $500,000. And they just split the bonus evenly between all the team members. And I couldn't help but hypothesize that was the PPP money they gave away.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, they ended up selling their business in the same year, in which case giving away the PPP money to the people in a bonus, if you knew what was about to happen, makes a lot of sense, right?
Sure.
And
well, I don't know if bonuses is, you want the money to be effective. Highest and best use is a term I love, because there's a million ways to spend it, but what's the highest and best use? There's a million good ways to spend it. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Any money in that business was going to go to the owners, right?
Sure.
And if you go back to the government wants it in the economy, then maybe giving it to the employees is in the spirit of the original intention. Sure. What were you going to say, though?
I would say, one thing that we did with Group Collect, and none of the listeners are Group Collect customers, so there's no reason why I'm plugging Group Collect. But we looked at this pandemic as a way to help our customers. So we were writing more on, because we were writing for travel companies, protocols on trimming expenses back. So really, if you had extra money, you either could look at it a way to how can you help yourself, but how can you add resources to help customers who may be struggling? If I'm a design agency, I would be reaching out to every single, or marketing, I'd be reaching out to every single of my customers saying, hey, if you need free work, just tell us how we can help you. Because worst case scenario is you get your money, you bonus it to your employees, and all your customers go out of business.
Yeah.
And you're like, look how rich we are. And then all your customers are like, great, we really could have used some marketing materials that you have $500,000 you're sitting on. It'd been nice to help the people who've been helping you for years.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Well, we've got different types of customers in our world who aren't agencies. We've got food and beverage. We've got manufacturing. Sure. You've got a little bit of food and beverage experience with the brewery. What's different about that with PPP? Because my understanding is that business has taken it on the chin.
Oh, they did. Well, they got Florida's one of the few companies that's wide open.
Okay.
There's like no restrictions currently.
Right.
However, people still are apprehensive, and our industry has been beat up really bad because people are eating at home more, and they're getting to-go service, that sort of stuff. But the cash flow of a beverage manufacturing, food manufacturing business, and let's say a time and materials marketing company is totally different. With brewing, specifically brewing, you are buying ingredients 2 weeks before you brew them, which is between 15 days and 45 days from when the beer is ready. So you have a 60-day influx of, I spent $40 or $5,000 in grain. Now that turns into $40,000 in beer 60 days later, but then you got to serve it too. So it's a
within a period of time before it goes
quite
bad.
A period of time. Yeah. It's very cash heavy, and because you are always manufacturing, you can't predict. With time materials business, let's say you lose 2 clients, you go stop working, you're fired to all your employees, right? You can't make those adjustments in a manufacturing business. You've got all this beer produced, and if people don't show up and drink it, what do you do with it? And so it is.
What do you do with it? Do you drink it yourself?
Drink it all. You drink it all.
Take it home.
Well,
give it to the kids with dinner.
Exactly. But there's we didn't get PPP money because we weren't technically open in February. We didn't open until March, even though we were opening March the 1st, and we got shut. The whole country shut down. So we had employees that had left their job, couldn't get through the state unemployment website, and who they look for to pay their rent? Me. Right. So very, very cash heavy business, and a very high fixed expense. Well, the down weeks, you still have people who need to get paid. You can't just say, hey, we didn't do well this week, or we're going to be slow this week. The first week of January is the slowest week for any restaurant or bar,
Right.
Because people have no money and they're on diets. And but these employees have to be paid. They still need their hours, and you just take it on the chin. So it's definitely, it's not like the marketing business, software business.
No, it's very different. What about real estate? I mean, you're kind of into the commercial real estate business as well, with everything you've got going on. And commercial real estate had sort of they had their shields up last year because PPP money comes out and everybody's required to spend some of it on rent.
Sure.
And then later they weren't. So they got kind of a little bit of help with that. But what about dealing with tenants who can't pay or don't want to pay or aren't sure if they should pay right now?
Sure.
That business is different. Does commercial real estate? I guess commercial real estate companies can get PPP money, right?
They can, if there's a loss of rent. So PPP money is basically based off of your payroll. Yeah. And traditionally, real estate companies don't have a big high payroll. Right. That's one of the problems. But you are seeing people who own properties who do have PPP money, putting in solar panels. That's big in Florida right now. A lot of people are putting solar panels on buildings. People are upgrading canopies and windows, those sort of things, fixtures in properties. The big talk among commercial real estate now is the disruption that remote work is going to do. It's going to do, and it's already had. So you look at any disaster, like we had Hurricane Michael that came through 2.5 years ago and beat us up real bad. And the pandemic, those force people to make decisions. It's not that they make new decisions. It's like, oh, I've thought about retiring. I've thought about going remote as a company. Now you're forced. So you have a speeding up of decisions that normally would have happened 3-4 years down the road happens much quicker. And so now you have people who have been forced to remote work, and they're like, why do we have to go back? And what does that do to the commercial real estate industry?
Well, I think what it's going to do is slowly over the next few years, as leases come up for renewal, we're going to see a decline in occupancy rates. But I don't know that it's ever going to hit hard all at once.
Not at once, no.
Yeah.
No, it would have. It wasn't PPP money.
It did actually for a couple of months while we were waiting on the PPP money.
Sure. My tenants we communicated quickly with them and clearly. They all paid on time. We had a few residential people who had some issues paying their rent in their houses. But commercial, of course, Florida is a different animal. We're pretty much wide open here, and we had shutdowns previously, but I would say from August on, it's been wide open and business as usual. And so it hasn't been as bad as other places like California,
right?
Have been really shut down.
So I'm not in the commercial real estate business, but I have a lot of leases because of everything I've got going on, and I am by no means bragging on this, but I'll tell you that when COVID hit in early 2020 and nobody knew what was going to happen.
Sure.
Like I geared up to go to battle with my landlords, even though I didn't want to. And even though ultimately ended up, paying my rent and having good relationships, I was lawyered up and ready to sort of say, you know what, you're not going to get any money from me.
Right.
And I was prepared because I was going to spend money on payroll before I was going to spend money on rent. So, and I didn't want to, be doing what I was doing, but I was also trying to protect my employees. That they're the lifeblood of my business, because if I don't protect my employees, I don't have a business. And if I don't have a business, landlords are really not going to get paid. Right. And so I was geared up and just making sure that I was really just holding on to cash, because
I think everybody was. Hit the brakes. Brake check.
Yep.
And it's wise to brake check. But you certainly don't. I think the opportunity in that brake check is to teach your clients and your customers something new they don't know, because everyone was looking for information. what do I do? How do I do it? When, you know, right now everyone's kind of like a gopher, kind of poking their head out, like, is the coast clear? And you know, how do you reassure your customers, or how do you help them with their perspective on business or what they should be looking for? Nobody, and realizing that no one's been through this situation before, right? Like just like you and I are talking about, we're thinking about, everyone has an opportunity to teach customers, either to say, hey, none of us have been through this, and we're all kind of learning how with this, and what are some thought leaders working on that sort of stuff. I was really disappointed that the Restaurant Association, the Brewers Association, there's so many associations around food and beverage, weren't at the forefront of protocols and cleaning and you know, ways to spend money and best protocols for to-go businesses and those sort of things. They were all kind of worried about their own business more than the other people's businesses who they serve. Right. And I think that's extremely distasteful when you have a business that serves themselves more than they serve the people who you know, they should be serving.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's plenty of that to go around. I've got two stories I remember from the original COVID that I think we can take lessons for this round of the PPP money. And one is that a restaurant that is next door to one of my offices, they actually ended up making more money with higher margins in the first half of 2020 with catering businesses for hospital systems and things like that, because they were working longer hours and they weren't able to the systems were wanting to take care of the employees and get them fed well. And this restaurant was kind of in the Memphis area, was at the forefront of tackling that problem. And so while their dining room shut down, their catering business boomed, and they were doing a lot more volume and had good margins because they had such a short menu.
Sure.
And another one that I remember is we had a customer who tried to pump the brakes on us, didn't want to pay their bills because of COVID. And kind of to your point, we said, okay, I understand. Yeah, that's cool. You know what, though? You still need some updates to your website. Let us take care of those for you, because we don't want to stop working for you because you still need to be in business. You're a part of this community, and it was like a local museum, right? And we were like, like, you guys are struggling, but your website still needs updates, and we need to be getting this information out there. So let us please keep working on that. We don't, we have time for it. And I found out through that experience that they were just prioritizing where they sent the money, and they put us down really low. And as soon as we treated them right, not that this would happen for everybody, because we were prepared to do it without getting paid.
Right.
You know what? We're going to go ahead and write you that check. Like, right. Because we were so good to them,
Yeah. My favorite poem, and my mom made me memorize this as a kid, is If by Kipling. And it talks about, the first line is, when all around you are losing their heads and blaming it on you. And it's a poem that talks about how to be a man, and man being early 1900s man. This is more like, I should say, how to be an adult or successful person. It just goes through like a situational thing. People are losing their heads and blaming you. Can you keep your head? And when people are dealing in lies and lying about you, can you keep your words pure? Those sort of things. And so I think you'll find too, like, you had an opportunity there to be like, you, here's my lawyer, right? But and that would have spread through town, right? They would have gone to that same person would have gone to their job in 3 or 4 years.
Never even considered it, but yeah.
And so, but that would have, that reputation you had in that moment, you could have been nasty towards them, and that reputation would have just stroked out anything you've ever done good with them, right? Yeah. And so people will appreciate how you deal with things. My grandfather, great grandfather, was a forester, timber harvester around the Great Depression, and he used to say to my grandfather, if they can live with it, like by not paying him, we can live without it. And just taking the high road when people are struggling and they can't pay you. So it's business is hard, man, and you gotta have a guiding light. But certainly, if you have free money, looking at ways to diversify your business, how to help your customers, even if it's free work, if it's teaching, serving them, even if they're not spending money. The worst thing you can do is sit on your hands.
Yeah.
Even deploying the life rafts, which is, marketing initiatives, adding a different revenue stream. It's all important,
Yeah. And I think to some degree, follow the spirit of the stimulus and get that money back in the economy somehow. And,
sure.
and grow the economy, and also to some degree, like be a civic member of the community, like do what's right for not just to survive for yourself. If you're lucky enough that you're using it to maybe thrive, find ways to thrive where you're, giving back with it to some degree.
If I was a marketing company that had extra time during this, I would be going to the chamber or a nonprofit resource center of whatever state you're in and saying what nonprofits need help right now, and just giving away work, just giving away.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be award winning, or maybe it does, but just helping people who actually need help, which is the spirit of the money. Even if you're not spending the money, you're still spending the money on labor, which is helping people who need help.
Right. Right. I mean, you could treat that check from the government as a project.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you're being paid to help somebody.
Yeah. But at the same time, like if you just need dry powder to help climb out of a hole that you've dug just surviving to this point, by all means, right? Use it to make sure that your business is going to survive. And I don't think the government cares that your business survives. I think the government cares that people continue to have jobs. Right. And so by helping your business survive, they're helping ensure people have jobs.
I met this local chef who owns a restaurant here, very small restaurant, probably 20 seats, young guy, late 20s, early 30s. And I called him sort of early on the pandemic and was like, hey man, what's going on? How you doing? He's like, I'm not taking any of that money. And he needed it too. And it was all about his ego. It was about his ego, and he didn't want to be someone who took a handout. No one's ever helped me before. I'm not going to. I'm like, you need to get over yourself, buddy. You got to get over yourself. Get the money and spend it the right way.
Right.
Ego is such a toxic spirit in a business, in a relationship in general. And so certainly if there's free money out there, even if you don't think you need it, spend it in a way that is in the spirit of the money and help someone else with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And a thing that I really like about you, and it's kind of the way my brain works, is that you're a creative thinker. And that doesn't mean that you're an artist or anything like that. When I say a creative thinker, I'm talking about, you think outside the box, right?
I can't afford the box.
Yeah, what box? But I think what that comes from is just a curiosity about things. And I think that's something that a lot of CEOs, especially founders and business owners, I think that will relate with them, is like, we think business is super interesting. Like any business and how it works is super interesting. And to tell a story, your business partner and I were walking around a downtown a few years ago at a conference that we'd met at. And we walked into an art gallery, right? And we were just wasting a couple of hours before dinner or something, walking around downtown. And one of the things that I just stood back and watched them do is they walked up to the person who was not the curator, but the person that was working at the gallery, and just started asking questions. Because I think there was like this interest in maybe investing in art as an asset. But it quickly turned into like 20 questions about the business of owning an art gallery. Well, okay, but how does this work? And like, what sort of margins do you get? And what's your markup? And like, how do you source? And how do you get an appraisal? And it was just all about like the intricate aspects of the business of running an art gallery.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the one of the things that I hope people do with this PPP money that comes out in the second round, and thinking of ways to just survive these weird times in business, is just to be curious and intellectual and like ask questions and don't make snap decisions and judgments. Like think about all the possibilities and play them out and see
Sure.
what's going to be the best way to put these resources to use. What are some interesting and new and creative ways that I could get through this problem that I've got to, to solve? And do I have to do it the way everybody's always done it, or can I do something a little bit different? And just like, maybe I need to go learn something new in order to survive,
Yeah. I think a lot of business owners have a slight paranoia about doing what other people are doing. Because it's almost like, that's what everyone's doing. Maybe we should go this direction. I agree that I find businesses, it's really psychology. I find the way people operate, herd mentalities and group dynamics, just fascinating. And I even heard this past weekend that for urologists who are giving vasectomies, that their busy season is the week before March Madness.
Why?
Because you get your vasectomy and then you chill out on the couch for a week and watch basketball.
Oh, good timing. Yeah, good right? Timing. That's funny.
But that's how that business works. So I find all that just super interesting. But I agree. You have to, I look at my problem as, if I have a problem, it's other people's problem too, in the sense that we're all experiencing the same thing together in this pandemic. And problems that you're solving for your business, your clients or your customers are having similar problems. And can you be transparent in your actions and the way you're thinking to help them out as well?
Yeah, and can you zoom out and see it from their perspective as well as your own? Well, Allan, I think that's as good of a place to kind of draw a line in this conversation as any, because you've done a really good job helping, I think, people see what other folks have done and understand the psychology behind the decisions. And so I want to thank you for getting on with me, and look forward to doing this again with you sometime.